My name's Tony Acosta. I'm a mortgage broker. I've been in the industry for about 17 years. And I have the privilege of knowing Stephen Padilla. We've met about 5 years ago, right?
Yes, about 5 years ago.
And what can I say? It's a good relationship. We became good friends. And, he's been in the industry for about 37 years. 37 years?
36.
36.
Yes.
Okay. So, he specializes in probate. I want to, formally introduce you and ask him a couple questions. You got a better idea what the probate process is and what it consists of. And we're just going to do an interview and just kind of chat and kind of get more feedback in terms of what it entails, the process, the time frames, and so forth. Steve.
Yes. Hi. Hello, everyone. It's Stephen, the probate specialist. I've been in the business 36 years. I have a team that helps me. I am ranked in the state of California through Century 21, eighth in the state of California, and number 21 in the nation. So part of that success is probate, and I want to call this little talk Probate 101. So, Tony, you want me to dive into it? You want to just start with the questions?
Well, let's just start off with the typical question. What is probate?
What is probate? Probate 101. Okay, what is probate? From my experience, probate has been when, and I'm going to use me as an example, okay? I own a piece of property, I'm married, but I take title of the property just under my name.
Okay.
Okay. To avoid probate, I created a trust. My
Okay.
name trust. So now if something would happen to me, the property won't go to probate.
Okay.
Okay, it stays in the trust. But let's pretend, because a lot of times that happens, let's pretend they don't have trust.
All right.
I don't have a trust. I go on vacation and I never come back. So my wife, in order to put the property in her name, she would need to go through what's called a probate. In this case with my wife, she's not going to sell the property. She just needs to transfer the title over to her name. The thing about probate is that it takes time. You got to hire an attorney. So a probate could be someone that's alive, that's not deceased, but is not capable of doing their transaction.
Okay.
Okay. That falls into a conservatorship, but it's very similar to a probate. So the person doesn't need to be necessarily deceased to be a probate, but it could be in that area. So remember this, you guys. If you own a piece of property and you're the only one on title, you want to create a trust, because that trust will give direction or tell your family members or whoever is going to be the trustee of your trust what your wishes are. Okay? If you don't do that and you stay on title on your own, then that will definitely be falling into a probate.
Let me ask you. So, what if both married couples are in title, and does it make a difference, or does it go in probate? Like if let's say they're joint tenants, or if it's community property, or does it just roll over to the next person?
It depends on how they took title. For example, Donna and I, my wife and I, are buying a property, and we're going in as joint tenants, which means that if something happens to me, she gets full. The property, right of survivorship, that's what it's called. But in the future, we're considering doing tenants in common, because there's other legalities behind it, and I don't want to get too much into that because it's not really into the probate realm, but you want to protect your interest that you own.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to make sure it's taken care of whoever you leave it to. Yeah.
So I get this question asked a lot. What's probate? How much is it going to cost me? How long is it going to take? And it's like there's a lot of variables involved in terms
Right.
of what it consists of. And when they ask me what rate am I going to get, well, what FICO you have, what down payment you have, how
Yes.
much equity you're going to have, and how difficult the loan can be. Whether you have full documentation or your light documentation. So to give a straight answer, it's hard for me to give somebody a rate without
Right.
really having any information. So that goes back to a probate. Like typically, what does it cost? How long does it take?
How long does it take? And what is a probate? Again, a probate is where someone that's deceased or incapable is on title and they're the only ones on title. That's a probate, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Second, how long is it going to take to petition the court to become the executor of the or administrator of the estate? Could take about 45 days to petition the court, maybe 60 days to actually become the person in charge to make decisions on that estate.
Okay.
The cost, there is a set formula. There's a set fee that attorneys can charge. It's the same for us as realtors. The courts only allow us to charge 5%. But if there's extraordinary things that we've done to help, we might be able to get very seldomly that you can get extra commission. But in this case, it takes about 12,000-ish, right around there. And here's the good news for every listener. Whoever becomes the administrator of the estate gets paid almost the same amount as the attorney. So the attorney's fees are similar to the person in charge, because the person in charge, Tony, is putting in their work, putting in time, going to court, talking to attorneys, so they deserve to get paid for doing their job.
Right. Now,
Okay.
the attorney fees, do those have to get paid up front, or do they get paid through the transaction
Great question.
or a portion
Great
of
question. Everybody thinks it has to be paid up front, but no. It gets paid after the estate, after the probate is closed.
it? Okay.
But there is some fees up front. They're called recording fees,
Yeah.
petition fees. They typically run, I hope I can get this right, between $1,500 to $2,000 just to start the process.
Okay.
And then you sign a retainer with the attorney. Yes.
So, can the administrator of the probate, let's say it's 5 siblings and one takes charge.
Yes.
So he has an interest in it, but he can also be the administrator as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Because he knows the family and he can do a better job. Now, I've seen cases where the family hires an outside administrator.
Okay.
I think it's smart.
Yeah.
I'm planning to hopefully look into that,
Okay.
because attorneys can become the administrator of the estate. They have no interest but to do the right job, to do
Yeah.
the right duty. But when it's family, there might be a little bit of conflict.
So, just to clarify, the administrator would be making a fee in addition to the attorney. So, it'll be like 2 fees being covered.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Now, that is optional. I've seen most of them get paid, but I've seen some waive the fee and they just put it back in the pot and it gets divided.
Okay. That's fair to know.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Well, guys, those are just some of the basic questions of probate. I know there's a variation of probate that you
Yes.
mentioned to me before.
Yes.
And what's the difference between one type of probate and another type of probate?
Very good question. There's 2 types of probate that I've dealt with. The first one is probate subject to court confirmation.
Okay.
That one is where maybe and there's a lot of factors, but I'll give you one. There's a lot of family that's going to receive an inheritance, and not everyone trusts each other.
Yeah.
So the attorney would recommend that the court supervise the sale.
I see.
Okay. There's a petition. There's time of waiting. You got to go in front of the judge to make the sale official. He has to hit the hammer and say sold. That's a process, but that's another topic. But that one, it takes longer.
Okay.
It takes about an additional 45 days from your typical transaction. Why? Because it has to go through court. The attorney has to petition the court to hear the case to sell the property. During that time, Tony, there could be overbidders.
I see.
And that's why a lot of attorneys prefer to go that route, because the court supervises and it's an open bid. It's pretty cool. You go to the court, you show them your cashier's check of 10% of whatever you're going to bid on, and you show that to the attorney approves you to bid, you go up in the front, and then you bid, and it becomes like a little bidding war there. It's pretty cool.
Okay, cool.
Okay, that's court confirmation.
Okay.
Okay. My favorite is the non-court confirmation, because it's easier, faster, quicker sale. Usually that one is where it's one beneficiary. They're selling it. There's no one else that's telling them what to do or asking them what to do. And those usually no court confirmation because they're the only ones that are going to receive the money. Okay.
Now I've I've heard that the taxes. Now if there's probate, let's say for example, I'm married, and I die. My spouse is trying to get the property through probate. She wants to sell it. What tax complications typically? Right. I know you're not a tax professional, but
I'm not.
There are some taxes associated, right?
Yes, I've seen. It's called the basis, the new basis. If something would happen to me, and my wife was alive, and we did the probate thing, or no probate thing, going through the trust, the property is now valued at my time of death.
I see. So you get taxed that
based on whatever it was worth at the time of my death, and then whenever she sold it. So the tax consequence could be very little, depending on how long you waited to do the probate.
I see.
I'm going to touch on something because this is important for all the audience.
Okay.
People don't do any probate or don't do anything with the property after 10, 15 years later. Say I passed away today, right? 2022. My wife doesn't do any probate. She's still on title, or I was on title, she wasn't. And she waited 10 years to do the probate. Now, when she sells that property, she has to come back to 2022 and find out what it was worth during this time. That's her new basis.
Yeah.
And then whatever she sold it for, that difference is taxable.
Wow.
So there is some taxes. Highly recommend you talk to an accountant that understands this type of business. But yeah, I'm not an accountant, so yeah, that's the answer.
So what is like the big problem that you see that people come across, like if they don't go through the probate process? Like I've heard of families where the husband dies, they continue paying the house, they think they pay off the house, and guess what? It's not their house.
It's not their house. It was a dad's house.
Yeah.
And that's what I was referring to just a bit ago.
Yeah.
Just because of dad, and they assume that they're going to inherit the property, there's still a process to get that inheritance, and that's called probate.
Yeah.
If there's no trust. So I highly recommend. There's a good attorney that I was referred to. He does a lot of trust. So we can refer anyone in the audience to a good attorney that can do trust. So now going back to that question, Tony, that's the biggest mistake they can do.
Yeah.
Wait 10 years, 20 years, pay off the house, and they can't do nothing with it. Now they got to start probate. I've had about 3 of those in the last maybe 24 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a 10. I'll give you this one. This one's pretty cool. My client, she owned 2 properties, one here in LA, one in Tennessee. Okay. They didn't start the probate until like 5 years later. Now they got to do 2 probates, one over here in California, one over there in the other state. But here's the deal. The one over there in the other state, they were earning mineral rights. There was an account, Tony, that had about $100,000 in that account that no one can touch because no one did a probate.
Wow.
So what happens? I come to save the day. I helped her do the probate in LA. We hired an attorney out in the other state. And I even loaned her some money. I think it was $2,900 to start the case at the other state because she had not received the money here in California. But that's the point. They waited too long. If they would have done it right after it happened, you have to mourn. But 6 months?
Yeah.
Is a good time.
Okay, 6 months. Now, give me an example of the time frame of a typical probate. Let's say I start the process today.
September.
Yeah.
Okay. All of September.
Let's just say it's January. So
okay, let's start in January. Let's start in January. Okay, it's January 2023, and you and I are working on a probate.
Yeah.
You come to me, and right away I tell you I have an attorney.
Yeah.
Mr. George Halimi. He's my probate attorney that I work with all the time. And I tell you, okay, let's talk to George Halimi.
Okay.
You met him, Tony.
Yeah,
as a
I
matter of
have.
fact,
Yeah.
So we went to his office just like
Right.
we did with your client during that time, and we sit down. He explains the whole process of probate. That appointment between you and I and the attorney could happen between now and 3 days.
Okay.
Okay. Once you settle the appointment with the attorney and you sign the retainer, then you move on to start the petition process. That takes 45 days approximately.
Okay.
Could be sooner. So now we're looking at maybe 2 months already.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to start the process, and then another 30 days to get you approved. So 3 months.
3 months.
If there's no more COVID and time runs normal.
Okay. So let's say time runs normal, then I become the executive. Then it goes to like a traditional real estate sale. Which
Yes.
could be-
Then you hire me. We put the property on the market. We disclose that it's a probate sold as is, no warranties, no guarantees. Property is vacant. Then we sell it.
Okay.
If you had full authority, that means no court confirmation. If you have limited authority, then we have to go to court confirmation. So let's go through the court confirmation process again. Okay. So you tell me, Stephen, I got my letters of authority. The court gave them to me. Let's put the property on the market. We put it on the market. It sells within a week.
Okay.
Okay. Now that process, if there's court confirmation, we need about 30 to 45 days for that
Okay.
process to go through. Once we go to court, this is the cool stuff. Once we go to court and we go in front of the judge and the judge says sold, now it's about 10 days to close after that.
Okay. Now, let's say I have a client that wants to buy a property.
Yes.
Do you have to put 10% down? Because that's typically what I hear for
Yes.
probate.
Yes.
It's minimum 10% down.
I've been, it's been easier to allow the attorneys to come in, to let the FHA buyers come in with 3.5.
Okay.
Because if they don't have 10%, they won't be able to bid on the property. And most of the probates, we need that first-time buyer.
I see.
We need that first-time buyer. So if they don't have 10%, then we work with
Also,
the attorney.
so you could buy.
You could, but it's an exception.
Okay.
It's not the rule.
But typically it's 10%.
They want 10%.
And
And can I say why
Sure.
they want
Yeah.
10%?
Yeah, please. Elaborate.
The attorney, the court, you, the buyer, and I, we all work to try to get the petition to go to court.
Yeah.
And if you don't put 10% down, then you're not serious.
I see.
If you're not serious, then the attorney now putting in work, the court putting in work, the court reporter, the judge putting in work to get you there to that point, and then suddenly you only put $3,000 or $5,000 down, and then you pull out and you say, no, you know what? I don't want to close the deal anymore.
So it's more for insurance. Or
Exactly, Tony.
Got it.
It's a security that the probate rule puts in to allow the buyer to know that they're serious.
Okay. Well, guys, there you have it. Stephen Padilla, he's been doing this for 36 years. Sorry. When we're going to take a short break, and then we'll talk about just general market and go from there. Okay, guys, we're back. So, Steve, thank you very much for all that information about probate. It's amazing. It's very confusing for most people, even me as a lender. I don't really don't have a great understanding of it. And thanks for sharing that, for taking the time. Now, I just want to get some feedback in terms of what the current trend is, what your opinions are, what's happening in the market right now. We know interest rates are going up. We see more signs up. We see houses sitting in the market longer. Everyone's talking about a crash. I mean, I don't know. I have different perspectives. There's some indication that there might be a crash. There's some indication that there won't be, or that may be a soft landing. But anyhow, I just want to hear a little bit from you, and then we can interact and just kind of chat and just go from there.
All right, cool, man. I hear the same thing. The interaction with lenders and the interaction with different companies that do real estate, they're all basically telling us that there won't be a crash. I don't know about a soft landing, though, because I also do foreclosures, and I have 3 properties coming up. One in Linwood, one in Downey, and Linwood, Downey, and Huntington Park.
Okay.
2 years ago, or even a year ago, I wasn't even thinking of bank foreclosures. And so I'm starting to see more. There's another agent in the area that posted something about a bank foreclosure in Baldwin Park. And that was his first eviction of the former owners in 2 years. So that's small writing on the wall that something's happening with the foreclosure market. But that doesn't scare me. I've been through this 3 times already. I will be more successful in a down market than I was in an up market. Let me explain. On a down market, you're going to have a better opportunity to buy more property.
Okay.
If the market goes down, and it is going down, because I think the number one item in the MLS are price reductions.
Okay.
Okay. I'm starting to see, we'll see 100 listings one day, and we'll see 100 price reductions.
Wow.
So that means that client sellers are starting to get the picture that we're not in the price range that we were 2 months ago, 3 months, or not even a month ago. When the rates went up, it stopped.
Right.
The people that still went through are the ones that had already had, like you would do it, they would already lock the rate.
Yeah.
And they were able to close after June 10th, but those numbers still weren't true.
Right. Yeah. So let's say, for example, like early March, you started seeing rates trickling up. I mean, they practically doubled in a period of like a couple months.
Yes.
So everything carried over. Let's say that the rates ended up going from 3% to about 6% within a 2-month period. But a lot of those files that closed were carry-throughs, from locks that were taking place early March. So we didn't see the full effects of it till later. My thought process behind that is that, with the whole COVID thing, a lot of things got delayed. There's a lot of backlog. Because typically, in a best case scenario, a foreclosure takes about 7 months to close, considering that there's nothing wrong.
7 months is very short time, but if it's clear to close, to foreclose, yeah.
Yeah, assuming there's no hiccups, right? But now we have the courts behind, and there's going to be potential influx of people in foreclosure. So that's a combination of more volume and the courts being behind. So I think
that's going to delay the process.
We're not going to see something till at least a year out, like the real signs of what's happening with the market. We know rates are higher. We got what's the word I want to use?
Comfortable?
Very comfortable with the low rates, but the reality is those rates have never existed before, and they were just a short term. And this is more the norm, and people have to get used to it, unfortunately. But I think that we're going to see a bit of a correction, and it's hard to say because if the government comes in and makes changes, then they can dictate what happens if the market does crash or if it doesn't crash. I feel like it's going to be a snowball effect. Yeah. So it's hard to say what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, all the signs are there that prices are going to pull back. We don't know to what degree. But again, if you're buying your home now and if the price is right, you can afford it, I think there's always going to be opportunities there to buy a house.
Yeah. I would definitely tell the audience that if you're going to buy to live on the property, it doesn't matter if the rates or the prices go up and down. If the rate is high right now, you're going to have an opportunity later to reduce that rate. I'd rather buy low and get a higher rate than buy high and get a lower rate because my balance is still high.
Right.
I'd rather buy low and get the rate that's here today. Buyers will dominate the market, I think, in the next few months because they're going to realize they can still buy and prices will come down to adjust to that buyer's need, and then the buyer's going to jump in. I keep telling my team, we need to be ready for it.
Yeah.
Let's get the listings ready, even if they're not selling right now. Something's going to happen to the market, and all those listings are going to sell like that. And that happened to me 3 times this year.
Yeah.
I've had 3 big jumps.
Yeah.
And I'm expecting one more before the end of the year. So, Tony, tell your people to buy. have them come in with you, get your loan locked in, so you can still get the lower rate right now. If the rates do go up higher, lock it in for 60 days. Get it go through. Have them go through us. We'll help them find the homes, and you take over the loans.
So what we're seeing right now is like the sellers are being more open to concessions, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of different options you could do. Is you can buy down the rate.
Let's talk about that buy down real quick. Tell me about that.
There's called a 2-1 buy down, but basically, let's say your rate is a 6%. You can get an interest rate that would be 4%. Then it goes 5%, 4% for the first year, 5% for the next year, and 6% thereon after. Then at that point, you can either refinance if the rates are better in the market at the time. So there's a lot of things you can do. Let's say if you buy a house and you're coming in with 10% down, instead of putting the 10% down, you might be able to put less percent down and use some of that down payment to pay off the PMI or get you a lower payment and get you into the house. But you have to do the math. I mean, if you're paying a really high rent, because rents are expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and if it makes sense to buy that house and it's just a couple $100 more, then and the numbers work out. Again, if it's for you for your own use, and you feel comfortable with the payment, and right now is the time that you can have the sellers help you and you can get the concessions that you need, because you're in the driver's seat, as opposed to overbidding and trying to just get your foot in the door.
Yeah, I agree with you. Right now is the opportunity, and whoever's listening out there that is on the fence, get off that fence. Just get approved. Get into the house. There's an opportunity. Contact Tony and get your paperwork ready. Get it submitted and get them. When we submit offers, we want a DU approval. Get them DU approved. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there listening that aren't sure, and all they have to do is just contact you. Take the first step.
So one last question before we turn it off. How do first-time buyers can tap into that foreclosure market? Because that's like, I want a foreclosure. I want a deal. Everyone's looking for the deal.
Man, Tony, I have 2 properties that would have fit the first-time buyer. But first-time buyers, their first time, they've never been through this process. And it could be overwhelming to them when you offer them the 203K, that FHA program, first-time buyer with a rehab loan.
Yes.
That loan, if there's a way to really explain it to the buyer, 2 of my listings that needed a ton of work, they would have been perfectly on that property.
Yeah, so they can get in there and do some work and have it paid for, finance basically.
And finance the repair, which is one loan. I think that is one of the best programs out there for these type of properties. However, here's the but. These properties require what's called the pre-sale report. Okay? We did a pre-sale report recently on a piece of property, and we found some issues. Illegal room addition.
Okay.
Okay. But you disclose that to the buyer, and you tell them, look, use the creativity to be able to come up and use the size of that room to make it legal.
Right.
And you use that money from the 203K to make this legal.
Yeah.
And the full rehab. And then when you're finished and done with, you have a brand new looking house.
So basically, as a first-time buyer, let's say I was a first-time buyer,
Yes.
right? I know we're getting into the 203K loans, and I'm helping out some borrowers. But the only caveat that I've seen, they take a little bit longer
Yes.
to get done because there's additional moving parts, especially for first-time buyers. But so we have the opportunity to get into a house, put some sweat equity, and then have equity right at the front door,
Right,
basically.
yeah,
So
yeah.
great. Well, hey,
Now, sorry. Or we don't have to go through the rehab. Just get them approved. We'll show them. We've shown one client 30 houses, and we got her in. We don't give up. We do all the heavy lifting for the client. So as soon as you get them approved, we're going to go through maybe the first week 10 properties. We're going to submit 5 offers. to see which one we're going to get, right? We don't have to go through the rehab. We can just look for something that's already
done,
or maybe just the original house but in good shape.
Yeah.
And those are the ones I like.
Yeah.
Original house where the investor can't buy it because they're not going to make any money.
Right.
But it's easy enough for a first-time buyer to go in there and buy it themselves. Maybe they're going to pay a little bit more, but they're going to have a chance to it.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, hey, Steve, we got anything else to share with us? Or
yeah, just if you want to know more about probate, follow me, Stephen Padilla _realty on Instagram. You can just Google my name, Stephen Padilla. You'll find me. I'm one of the top agents, realtors in the area. 36 years of knowledge, experience. I'm in the trenches every day. I work Monday through Sunday with appointments. I was here at Labor Day. We put a house in Downey for sale. Beautiful house, Tony. I got to tell you more about that later. So we are available, and we want to work with you as a team. So just keep us posted. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, Steve. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your
Thank you,
time,
Tyler.
man. Thank you.
All right, cool.
All right, guys.